Hey folks, it's Laura Sweeney with Raintree Nursery, and today we are at the beautiful Inspiration Farm of Brian Kerkvliet, a good friend of mine for many years.
Yes,
my gosh,
yes,
long
it's been a
time.
while.
Yeah, we're longtime members of the permaculture community here in the Pacific Northwest. And tell us a little bit about how you got here, what this beautiful spot is about.
Oh, thanks for coming. Thanks for being able to share what we have to offer to a wider community. Yeah, my wife and I kind of homesteaded this place about 25 years ago and raised our two lovely daughters here. And that's what kind of launched us off into wanting to raise good food and healthy food for our family. And that brought us to permaculture some 20 years ago. And originally we bought the property. We were both artists, so I'm a glass blowing artist and my wife does jewelry art. And so we named it Inspiration Farm, and our tagline was "We cultivate creativity," and we taught art camps and different art scenarios. We never thought we would be a farm, or you know, that wasn't really on the horizons per se, but we had chickens and we had our little personal garden. And then once we took some permaculture design courses, and one thing led to the next, and we go, oh my god, we got an amazing location, our context is really perfect for raising animals, putting in food for us, all these things. And so over the years we've developed the property, working with our annual seasons, the water flow, the nutrient flow, integrating animals into the system for to help with fertility and pest management, all those kind of things. Let animals do what animals do best, and you know, share their abundance while they live a good lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So,
and they only have one bad day, right?
That's right, one bad day. Yeah, we've really enjoyed it, and I like to you know, it's constantly evolving because you know, permaculture is a dynamic sport, so to speak. You're constantly observing and interacting and making little tweaks to the system to optimize its production and diversity.
And as things change, you know, as things grow, they get taller, they create shade, you get to deal with that. And conversely, as things fade, then you have more open spaces and you have to fill those.
Or there's successes or failures or you know, all these things. The dog digs out something, you just plant it, whatever. You're just, you know, adapt and change.
Right.
So over the years we've developed the property to pretty much be self-reliant on water. So we have 13 swales and 5 ponds within the whole system that all move water across the landscape and slow spread and sink our nutrient and water load through our annual beds and all our perennial systems. And most of our animals are upslope, so that nutrient load flows and passively gets distributed downslope as that water moves through the system.
Right.
We have done a wide range of things over the years, from annual crops to all kinds of perennial tree crops, which is the direction we're more moving towards. Agroforestry systems, nut trees, fruit trees, berry bushes, all these perennial.
Yeah, because as you get older, you kind of want the fruit to come to you.
Yep.
Right.
Pretty much get it in place, let it go the distance.
Yep.
So some of these trees will live hundreds of years. You know, outlive me, and my great grandkids will be picking pine nuts off the.
Isn't it funny how kids can bring you into a system like this? Because that's exactly how it was for me too.
Yep.
I wanted my kids to be able to like forage in the yard.
Yep.
And then I discovered permaculture and went, oh my gosh, it could forage and be a food forest and make cottage industry stuff, and the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, and there's all these like key point little crops, the entry layer crops, like for us the kids, peas, you know, or carrots, like pull it out of the ground, or a raspberry or a blueberry,
purple
like
cauliflower was it for my one of my boys.
It's like, oh my god, I could just walk out the door and I know where they are, and just off the bush, right in the mouth, you know?
Power to a child.
And just to give some shout out, like both our kids are amazing. My eldest daughter turned out to be a culinary artist and a nutrition specialist.
Oh my
so
gosh.
she does nutrition counseling for people.
Aw.
And then our youngest daughter is very into animals and works with horses, and they both did 4-H with goats and other things through the years. So growing up on a farm teaches you so much more than just nature. Is like responsibility and attention to detail and looking, observe and interact, all those things.
So excited to see all the things you have done here.
Yeah, we have a lot to show.
Shall we?
If you want to look around, we can show you all kinds of little
Absolutely.
tidbits.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Now look at this. My gosh, these are beautiful. What is this? I mean, I know it's a grape, but what kind of grape?
Yeah, these are Pinot Noir wine grapes, and we grow a number of different wine varieties, but the Pinots do particularly well here, even though we're really close to the Canadian border.
Well, I know. I was going to...
20 miles from the Canadian border.
I mean, like northern tier.
Yep.
Pinot Noir grapes.
Yeah. Part of it is microclimate, and part of it is just siting and orientating your grapes so they have good frost drainage and good air circulation.
So frost drainage, so they're on a slope, so the cool air just kind of passes them by.
Yeah, these are not they're one of the only crops that we don't put on contour. We don't put along a level contour line.
Right.
These are going upslope to downslope.
I see.
And
so on a hill, like the contour would be, things would pile up against the contour.
Yep.
Versus a downslope, if you've got the hill, it actually
slides right
slides straight down.
Yep.
And that's how the cool air can just slide right past them.
Yep.
And not pool and make them cold, right?
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
So, and then we are also a biodynamic farm, so we do some biodynamic practices that help ensure the ripening of some of these varieties. So we use equisetum tea, which is horsetail tea, and that is very high in silica, so it helps stave off powdery mildew and any of the other fungal issues that grapes can have.
Especially around here.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of wet, cool,
exactly,
kind of
kinda
moist
dewy
all day,
evenings.
walk-in facial kind of thing, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And then we also put on horn silica, which is a field spray that helps increase solar activity and photosynthesis in the leaves and the fruit, and that helps our early ripening.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so you have like 3 or 4 different kinds of wine grapes.
Yeah,
right?
we have Sigribi and Madeline Angevine and Pinot Gris, and I think a couple of other ones. I forget the names right off. But.
And these are just really simple trellises. There's nothing fancy here. I mean, it's just a post and a couple of wires.
Yep, there's 2 main wires. Originally I had 3, so you can see there's 3 arms on these. Here's the main trunk.
Oh wow, that's been there for a while.
And then here's one set. Actually, that just goes one direction. But here, I will probably end up pruning this off because I'm going more towards a 2-wire system. So there's 2 cardones there, and then 2 more up there. And then these lower ones, they're still pretty productive down in the...
And you don't fuss with taking off a bunch of leaves or anything like that to get everything to ripen on?
I do somewhat, but we're permaculture. We kind of practice tolerance and minimal involvement as much as possible.
And you still get a good yield.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's not super fussy practices.
Exactly.
Wow, so this is a beautiful piece of work. This is like a hedgerow, but it's also a windbreak, right?
Yep.
Because this is west, and this is where most of your wind and especially the cold stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. No, this is all all about design, putting design into function. And we determined that our prevailing winds through most of the growing season come from the southwest, and that was desiccating and kind of harshing out all our annual crops, which are on the other side of this. And this happened to be right along our swale line, which is what's harvesting water and stuff throughout the winter months. And so we decided we didn't want to put a super productive series of species in here. We wanted a very fast growing succession of species where we could get that windbreak up quickly and start providing the functionality that we designed it for. And so what we did to expedite that windbreak succession was we planted 3 things all on the same day. On the other side of these willows here, we planted Jerusalem artichokes fairly densely, and those got 10 feet tall in the first year and provided that windbreak we were looking for.
Yeah.
And then the same day we planted willow whip stakes, live staking, at like 1 to 2 foot intervals.
And that's just like a stick, right?
It's
That's
like
just a 3 foot tall
prune
stick.
off a stick and stuff it in the ground.
I love willows for that. That is easy planting.
So we just stuck those on down the line. And then we also planted, these are American bush hazels. So these are a hazelnut bush that only really get about maybe 15 feet tall at the tallest. And they're very flexible, so you can pull them down to harvest. But they're much slower growing. And so by planting those 3 species all at the same day, we got wind block year 1. Year 2 and 3, we started getting that willow wind block. We're at like year 4 or 5, and what we've done is we've pollarded, which means cutting the willows down at like waist height, and then it shoots up a whole big spray. And we'll look at that a little closer here in a bit. But by the time these filberts get mature and up to a windbreak size, it might be 10 years or so. But by that time, we can chop out all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, and you've been harvesting things since the first year in the ground.
Exactly.
And I noticed that you've picked varieties that will withstand a lot of water.
Oh yeah.
And being right on a swale line, I mean, they're going to have wet feet for what, like 8 months of the year?
Well, 3 to 4, depends on the year. You know, it's mostly the winter months.
Yeah, but
So,
I mean, they're going to be pretty wet, right? Yeah. So
yeah,
you
but
don't
they can
have to-
tolerate it, love it, and they grow faster that
Yes,
way.
yes.
And they get the nutrient flow as well.
Yes.
So, and what's beautiful about this is all of these young spray, this is all 1-year whips. These are perfect for basket making. They're very flexible. They have hold a nice color for basket and furniture making. So this is an additional yield that we can get off of this system.
Yes. And I know that I see some people use like curly willows, and then they have a little bit of something to sell to local flower arrangers. Yeah. So little tiny bits of income all over the system, either for you or for somebody else. It's really nice.
And in addition, willow is a very fast dynamic accumulator. It just has a lot of biomass, puts down a nice leaf litter. There's a lot of chop and drop wood that composts down very quickly and turns into good soil.
Right, and all of those roots, when you're cutting, you're constantly causing that pulsing of root growth and then death and adding all that good organic matter to, I mean, it just is, it's so much easier to let the plant put it under the soil and have to add it to the top all the time, right? So yes, I want to see the backside.
Yeah, let's show you. Let's go around there.
I am so excited to see this. I hardly ever see anybody prune to this form. This is so cool. So this is a pollard. Tell us about this.
Well, there's a couple of ways you can work with these fast-growing tree plants. One is called coppice, which is when you cut it right down to the ground and you make like a stump, low-growing stump, and then it reshoots out of that. This is called pollard, which is a high coppice, where you cut it off about waist height. And this was cut this spring, right here. And so this is 1-year growth.
Oh my God.
Off of these willows. So you can see with an established root system how much material it can push.
That's amazing.
And this is all sequestering carbon. It's creating fiber for like we talked about, basketry projects or furniture. Or you can just chop and drop, and this rots down very quickly and turns into soil. So this is establishing essentially building, you know, soil on top of this swale berm as we're going along. And it's creating habitat, so birds love to stay in here and they leave their blessings along this line.
Because more fertility, more fertility.
Exactly. And I've experimented with using this to make char, because the willow makes the best artist charcoal. And so that's a potential high value added kind of
cottage industry
you can make. We could build a specialty kiln, and because these are long and straight, we could fit a whole lot of them into there at the same time, and you get these beautiful char pencils that you can sell high value to artists.
And of course, if you were going to experiment with biochar, if your soil was really fast draining and you wanted to add, you know, some really constant fertility and place for biological activity, you could do that with this too, right?
Exactly.
Make biochar.
Exactly.
Bury it.
Yep.
Yeah. See, this is so cool. What we do on our place is that we have mulberry that we pollard like this right next to where the pigs are, and we pollarded it about this height, and so it creates shade for the pigs. Every year we cut off half of the uprights, so half of them stay to give fruit to the pigs. But it never gets so tall that it shades the greenhouse back behind it.
Perfect.
So it's just this beautiful system where it gives and it gives and it gives. And
exactly.
we come out here with some flippers, right?
Yep.
It's awesome.
Just come out, down the line.
It's easy. I like that.
Yeah, and you're building soil, you're building habitat, you're building fertility. At the same time, you're providing all these other functions of wind block, shade.
Yeah, the wind block part. See, when you were talking about the wind coming through and really drying things out, now that you don't have the wind drying this area out, I bet you've got a hot pocket here.
Yeah.
So that you can concentrate heat.
Definitely.
Which is always...
Yeah, and preserve moisture.
Yes, and that's always something that we're looking for, because it's kind of a cool summer area here, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Nice.
Definitely. No, multifunction.
Absolutely. All right, what else are you going to see?
Well, let me show you over here.
All right. Okay, Brian, this is kind of interesting. Sculpture wise, what is this?
Well, everybody's got dead heads laying around, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with all those dead heads?
Use them as sculpture?
Get a handle on it.
Wait a minute, no, are you telling me you're actually growing handles on these tools? These are tools?
This is nature's slow and steady response to replacing my tool inventory.
Oh,
so yes, I am growing handles on these deadheads, so they will have a new lease on life.
That is crazy. What a great idea. Because I mean, they're gonna just grow and swell and perfectly fit these, right?
Yep. Yeah, and on top of that, this is an amazing species. This is black locust, which is a super amazing tool handle material.
Yeah.
It's fast growing, it's rot resistant.
Right.
It has a little bit of spring give, so it's not so jarring on your hand when you're using them. So we have everything from hammers to shovels. We've got some pickaxes and regular axes on another location. And I find it takes about 3 to 4 years before the crop is ready.
And do they last? I mean, are they really as good as they sound like they would be?
They're tighter than anything you can whittle and show in there and throw a wedge in and da-da-da. You know, it's gonna
that is amazing.
Go the distance.
Okay, I have to say this is my favorite thing so far. I've never seen a crop like that.
We strive to entertain and be functional.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I'm looking over here and I'm seeing something a little bit more traditional, but also something that's taken a few years to develop. What is over here?
Let's go see our nut forest.
Oh, yes. Wow, these are lovely. Who are these?
Yeah, well, these are butternuts and Japanese heart nuts, and they do have a very tropical looking leaf, kind of palm frond-esque, and it creates a beautiful dappled shade in the understory. These are fairly young. They'll get quite a bit larger, and I will probably end up thinning some of these out as they start maturing a little bit larger. So again, that's kind of the fast track succession strategy. Densely plant and plan for thinning and stuff as they mature.
Right, because then you have shade, which keeps down some of the things that want to infiltrate into and would cover, like the blackberries that we fight with.
Yep,
right?
exactly. Like this whole area, the fence line is just beyond there, and we had blackberries all the way out like 50 feet from the fence line.
Yeah.
And so we pushed the blackberries back, planted in these trees, kind of kept the blackberries at bay for a couple of years, but now we have canopy cover, and that is keeping the blackberries at bay.
Perfect.
But also by planting densely, you get a few nuts off of a bunch of trees early in succession, and then as they get older and larger and more mature and start crowding each other out, you can take out every other one, and then you get more nuts off of fewer trees. So you're getting your yield earlier on in the system's establishment.
Yes, and then you get to use the posts for things like outdoor kitchen poles or pergola poles or furniture making.
Yep, exactly. All nut woods are very desirable timbers.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ah, and then you just grow them right here.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And some of these were started by just direct seeding in the ground, and then some were nursery plants, and then some were plants that I started and grew out in my nursery for a year first.
You know, and I bet by self-seeding, you're selecting for trees that really want to do well right on this spot.
Exactly. And you're not messing with any of the tap roots or anything. It's most nut trees have a really deep tap root, and so they're just out of the gate and running with putting their tap root down.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah, and we have some more chestnuts down this way that we can go
let's see
check
those.
out.
Yeah. Oh, these are chestnuts, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
Look at that! That is really spiny.
Yep, almost squirrel proof.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's a really good thing around here, especially.
And you can see the flower bud.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's the little pollen. And we're going more and more towards these perennial protein options.
Right.
Trying to look at options to get away from flour and annual grain production. And chestnuts is probably one of the leading possibilities in this region. You can make chestnut flour, chestnut butter, just eat them straight.
Right, I always talk to people like that chestnuts are corn you grow on a tree.
Pretty much.
Because they're all starch and sugar versus most other nuts, which are protein and oil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And they just get better and better over the years.
Yeah.
You know, you can have chestnut trees that are hundreds of years old and putting off tons of nuts.
And they're beautiful.
Yeah, look at these like glossy, very variegated leaf, very ornamental.
And they're statuesque. They just, I don't know, there's just something about a chestnut grove. And then over here you've got English walnuts, right?
Yep. There's another large English walnut, which not a great crop on it this year, but nuts have typically what's called a mast year. So masting means just amassing tons of nuts.
Right.
And I guess a lot of nut trees have grown to live with what eats the nuts.
Oh,
and so it's like feast or famine. So the squirrel population grows, and then the nut tree decides too many squirrels, and it doesn't produce a lot of nuts, and then the squirrels have a famine, and they die off, and then the next year the nut tree goes boom, and we're going to put on a whole bunch of nuts. So some of them get germinated and they procreate themselves.
Oh, that makes sense. Now, I have heard that chestnuts don't have those off and on years, that they almost always produce a really nice crop every year.
Generally
do you find that to be true?
Yep, and it does depend on what they have to cross-pollinate with, because they do want neighbors to cross with, whereas the walnuts are pretty self-fertile.
Oh, yeah, right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. So what is this thing here?
This is a pine nut cone. You ever eaten pine nuts like in pesto or in Caesar salad or anything like that?
Right.
Well, this is an Italian stone pine. So it makes a pine cone that has 2 nuts per petal of these cones. And those 2 little nuts just sit in there. And when I pick this cone, which it takes 3 years from when this cone first starts developing to when it's ripe. But it's a pretty good sized cone.
Yeah.
And ideally you pick this cone when it's ripe, it's kind of brown, but it hasn't opened up yet. And then
it's like totally smooth still?
It's totally smooth, well, smooth as a pine cone can be.
Right.
But the petals haven't opened up. And then I just let it sit in a warm room for a few days, and it popped. And all these petals opened up. And then those nuts, you can kind of just shake them out.
Oh, wow.
Like that. And out of this one cone, we got 125 nuts. And then these are still not edible like that.
Okay.
There's a shell.
All right.
You can see how thick that shell is on there. But there is that sweet, piney, lovely pine nut inside of there. And so you can crack these if you're careful. With a cracker or a vise or something. If you go too hard, you'll just
mushy.
nut butter.
Yes.
But they're delicious, and they can grow here in zone 8A. There's other varieties that'll go even as low as zone 6.
Wow.
And that's like the Korean stone pine or the Siberian stone pine.
So is this an Italian stone pine?
This is an Italian stone pine, Pinus pinea, and also known as umbrella pine. So it'll go up and make a canopy, not go up conical.
Yeah. So it ends up looking almost tall,
wide.
like an umbrella.
Yeah, see, it's already kind of going flat top and kind of wide on there. So it's, in that sense, it's easier to harvest. It's not a super tall tree.
Yes.
And it makes a nice shade canopy underneath it. But it will live for 700 or 800 years in the proper environment, and it started producing cones for us like in year 15. So it's not like quick, but it's long.
But it's beautiful.
And it's beautiful.
And it just lasts for in the landscape. You can harvest it or not, depending on what you need. Oh.
And this is another one of those perennial proteins. It's, you know, as far as like a high value crop, I don't think you can get too much higher than pine nuts.
Right. And then in the wintertime, you can stick peanut butter and seeds and feed the birds.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff. Wow, that is really nice.
Yeah, we're excited about them. We have all kinds of different pine nuts planted throughout the property, but this one's the most mature and has been producing yields. And we start seeds, new trees from these seeds as well.
Perfect. Yeah, the cycle continues.
Yes.
Well, bless my soul. I think that this is a solar dehydrator, right?
You bet.
Oh, this is, I want to make one of these at home. This is such a cool thing. All right, so tell us how this works.
Yeah, you bet. So with all this fruit, you got to do something to preserve the harvest,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So one of my favorite ways is dehydrating, because it doesn't use electricity to store it for the long haul. You dehydrate it, put it on a shelf in a jar, eat it all winter long.
Yeah.
So we dehydrate berries, vegetables, herbs, all kinds of different things in here. And we were using an electric one for a number of years, and it's like, wait a minute, we have all this sun during the summer. We could easily do a solar model on that.
And they're not very big, the electric ones. I mean,
no, it doesn't hold that much stuff. So I started thinking about it and researching it, and I'm a glass blower. I deal with thermodynamics a lot and convection flows. And I've saw a lot of solar dehydrators out there, but they didn't make sense the way that they all had them designed. And so I wanted to design this one so it works with the natural convection flows, the way heat rises when it's hot and falls when it's cold.
Okay.
So the way this one works is there's a screen down here, and air enters into the bottom, cool. It gets heated in this solar chamber, which is just screen. And right now it doesn't have any glass on it because it blew over in this windstorm and the glass broke, so I have to replace that. But there's normally a piece of glass here. The screen just increases the surface area, so it has more contact with hot. So it's picking up that heat and giving it off to the air that's moving through here. It rises up, it goes into the chamber, which is an old stand-up freezer. So it's not a refrigerator that has two compartments. It goes into the chamber, and as it picks up moisture and cools from touching what you have in there drying, that air falls.
Yeah.
And then the air falls all the way down to the bottom, and it exits out over here into this stack. And the stack is painted black, and then it starts heating again, and so it rises.
Yeah, right.
So this causes updraft.
Yes, and so the flow goes like this,
Right.
right? And then it all just
Right.
kind of constantly, so it creates like its own fan.
It's its own fan.
Oh,
it's circulating all that energy.
brilliant.
So, and you can look inside, and there was very minimal we needed to do on the inside because it already had these adjustable shelf racks there. And when this is operating, the top gets out to 130, 140 degrees.
That's hot.
So this is obviously the hottest, and then you move it on down to cooler
So
and
the more
cooler.
delicate things go down below.
Yep. If you're doing herbs, you want to slow dry, you put them down lower.
Yeah.
Berries, really moist stuff up higher.
And so the only kind of custom things you did to this freezer were to cut a hole up here
Yep.
and put a screen there,
Yep.
and cut a hole down there and put a screen there, and
the
attach it to the pipe.
That's it.
Right. And with a little clean little elbow grease, it's
Yep.
going to be good to go.
Yep, and then we normally have just separate screen racks. So we just put the screen racks in there, and then we can adjust our fruit in and around. And then it's also on wheels, so you can turn this into the sun or out of the sun, depending upon what you want to do.
Right.
So you can track it, and I would move it like 2 or 3 times a day to follow the sun. Or if I'm just doing herbs, I'll just leave it.
And you want a kind of a more delicate process.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it's been a workhorse for so much of our fruit.
I bet. Yeah, nice. Nicely done. This is one of the most beautiful examples of a swale system that I have ever seen. This is so gorgeous. Tell us how this works.
Well, it's multifunctionality. So swales in general are meant to hold, slow, spread, and sink water across the landscape. So if you picture a topographic map, those contour lines that wrap around a hillside, that's what a swale is. It's a ditch totally on contour, dead level. So once in the winter time, this fills up with water to about here, and this water just sits in here, and then it soaks in downslope. So it soaks in and infiltrates into this berm that you're seeing all along here that are planted with a whole myriad of productive fruit species.
Yeah.
So berry bushes, fruit trees, ground covers, medicinal plants, all kinds of different things. And so some of the species we have are, here's a sea berry or sea buckthorn, and this is a nitrogen fixing bush that has an amazing superfood berry that tastes like an orange almost. It's very citrus. It's 5 times higher in vitamin C than oranges.
And it's got that amazing tropical edge to it that is just like you can't grow anything that's like that other than this.
And it has it's super high in essential fatty acids, so omega-3, omega-6, omega-9,
which is rare in berries.
Very rare in berries.
Yeah.
So it's a superfood berry for viruses, for cancers, for diabetes, for all kinds of different things. So yum, superfood berry. And then we've got apples and currants of all kinds. Lots of overstory, understory.
To go back
shrubs.
to the swale just for a minute, when you have a swale system like this and you have really big rain events like they have in other parts of the country, it keeps you from getting channels, right?
Yes.
Because it slows everything down.
Exactly. This is the one of permaculture's main strategies is to make running water walk or crawl. So you're taking water that would normally flow right down a valley into a rivulet, into a torrent, into a flash flood situation in some scenarios.
Right.
And you're taking that and you're pacifying that water by spreading it out over horizontally across the landscape, where it cannot run. It must be idle and soak into the ground.
Yeah.
And so through creating really rich organic soils and providing the water through the winter months, which here in the Pacific Northwest, we get most of our rain in 3 to 4 months over the winter.
Right.
And during the summer, we hardly get any rain at all. We might get, 3 months without a single drop of rain.
Right.
And so by taking the advantage of all that rain we get in the wintertime and holding it in our invisible pond in the soil, then it makes it accessible to all our plants throughout the year.
Wow, that's so good. So good.
Yeah. And
I
so
mean, look at all this stuff that's growing here. Apples, what is this?
it's called autumn olive,
Oh, right.
and it's in the Elaeagnus family, which means it's a nitrogen fixer. And it's not a true olive, but it has an olive looking leaf.
Right.
But what I love about it is that it has a berry that's ripe in the fall. So, after your main berries are over, you get these. And this is a very tasty little berry that's very high in pectin. And so you can add this to jams and jellies instead of pectin. And it helps gel all your jams and jellies. And it makes excellent meat glaze, like a cranberry meat glaze. I use the autumn olive and do a smear on there.
Oh, look at these are blooming again.
Yep.
Look at that.
Crazy.
Look at this. They'll show the bloom. They're
And
dainty. Are they fragrant?
They're very fragrant, and in the spring,
nice.
they're just so full of aroma. It pulls in all the pollinators and everything. It's like, here's the spot.
And it's like early summer that they bloom normally, right? Like way later than, not even spring. It's
right.
in the summer.
In the summer. And the sweet scarlet gummies are really early spring.
Earlier.
Yep.
Nice. Oh, beautiful.
Yep.
What else?
No, we put autumn olives in and around all our fruit trees on all our swale systems because they're fast growing pioneer species that we chop and drop as things get mature.
Yeah. Good stuff. Look at these beautiful apples. Oh my gosh. Now, I thought I saw some really big sea berries over here, right?
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen a sea berry this big. Look at this. Look at this.
Yeah, we have sea berries throughout the system. So sea berries, it takes male and female to get fruit. And so we have one male that's upwind. Remember we said the wind comes from the southwest. So we have one male that's way at the other end of the swale.
Yeah.
And then we have like 8 to 15 females all the way down here. And because the wind blows this way, it pollinates all the females.
Oh, that's so perfect. That's amazing. Wow.
And I've also experimented with grafting males on top of females. And so the pollen just falls down over the whole top.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Oh, these are beautiful. Now you were gonna, you have combinations of plants in these rows along the swales.
Yep.
But you also have combinations or guilds
Yep.
in areas by paths, right?
Yep.
I would like to see some of those.
Okay, let's go see.
All right. Now this is some really nice planting. These are planted right on a pathway, right?
Yep, this is our zone 1 path that we go up and down to the barn and
Multiple
my studio.
times a day,
exactly.
Right? And so you plant things here that are tasty, yummy, easy to harvest.
Yep, and I also plant like what I consider my mother plants, like when we first started getting going. Things that I really wanted to keep an eye on and keep track of, like when it ripens, what kind of things it likes, all that kind of thing. And then when I plant, like say cherries or gummies, if this one's ripe, I know to go check that one way over there that's also ripe at the same time. So they're kind of indicators that tells me what else is going on the farm.
It's like setting an alarm just by having something you walk by.
Exactly.
It's smart.
And we planned it so we have stuff that comes ripe here from very early spring. The sweet scarlet gummies are our first berries. Then we have honey berries in the understory. Those are probably even earlier sometimes. And then, you know, all the way through to cherries, apples, there's plums here. We just harvested our figs off of that other guild in the back.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Which is a little bit more of a Mediterranean guild. It's hot, dry, really rocky over there next to the building.
Yeah,
and so we did our fig there, and then we have sage, understory, and rock rose, kind of all as companion plants.
Because all of the sun bouncing off that structure is going to be hot.
Exactly.
Which is so funny when people have really hot spots and they worry about, oh, I don't water it enough. And I tell them, just use it.
Exactly.
You put stuff there that likes it.
Exactly. I don't ever water this fig. We got so many figs off of there.
Yeah.
And it's protected by the building from, in the wintertime, we have really severe northeast winds.
That's right.
That come out of the Fraser Valley.
Right.
So it's totally wind blocked by the building from the northeaster. And then it gets the southwest sun.
That's so perfect.
Yeah.
Smart.
So
Smart
microclimates.
Design. Yes.
And then of course apples. This is a Kingston Black, which is a cider apple, a late season cider apple.
Color on that. Oh my god.
And then pears and currants, all kinds of different things stacked in here.
Lovely. Wow. Now you have a tool that you use that I just love. You're going to show us that, right?
Yes, I can. Should we go grab it out of the studio?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah.
Look at this. This is a thing of beauty.
Yep. I'm all about appropriate technology, and sometimes the old school stuff is the stuff.
Is the best stuff.
For a reason.
Yeah.
Very minimal carbon footprint, you know, a little bit in making the metal. I've made my own snath, that's the handle. And this is black locust and applewood grips on there, because you get all these crazy pruning angles and stuff.
So you can really hang on to
the
them.
fruit trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got some very, it's very ergonomic. It's balanced properly. And if the snath is, and the whole setup is, works for you, it's set up specifically to your body. So your height, your stature, how you like to mow, and that kind of thing.
And
so this is
and there's
custom
stuff
to me.
online that people can use to measure themselves and figure
Yep.
out how long the snath needs to be.
Yeah. There's a whole, it's a whole world.
Yes.
It's like in many things in permaculture. There's all kinds of rabbit holes you can go down. So yeah, if I might, I would plug Scythe Connection, and they have a whole lot of really good documents on how to choose the blade for what you're mowing and how to build your snath and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is a European style scythe, which is different than an American style scythe.
Yep.
And this is much finer, it cuts better, it feels better, it's easier to use. And so looking for something that has this nice thin blade, the American blades are really heavy and chunky looking and the handles are super heavy. This is not that.
Yeah, this is lightweight and elegant. It's designed, if you notice, it's thin at the snath tip and it's really thick at the top. And so that's how you can get the counterbalance. American style setups are heavy at that end and light at this end. So you're moving all this weight around at the end of a stick, and that's what makes you tired.
Yeah.
And you can't sharpen them nearly as sharp as this one. This one is sharpened in two different ways. In the field, I use a whetstone that I carry in a holster with a little bit of water, and I will take that and
Get out of your way.
I won't get you. Very quickly, just kind of hone the blade, just like you would sharpen a kitchen knife on a stone, just quickly going down the blade like that. And I might do that every 5 or 10 minutes as I'm mowing in a field. And then periodically, you have to do a process called peening, and that is you take the blade off of the snath and you actually hammer the edge against an anvil and draw that metal out very, very thin. And it's that thin edge of the wedge that makes it easy to cut.
Yeah.
So let me show you how this works.
Yes, please.
Ideally, you want to cut early in the morning when the grass still has dew on it. And then the grass is more receptive and it just cuts like butter.
Yeah.
So we're a little later in the afternoon, but we'll show you how this works. Get it started here.
That is so gorgeous.
So usually you get a path going and then you're just advancing into that path little by little.
It's so meditative.
Yeah, it's my early morning Tai Chi. I can get out and I do a half hour to an hour of mowing, and I just feel really rested and like a nice aerobic exercise, but not physically intense.
Yeah. And then look at this. I mean, it leaves all this greenery in a nice row. So you can just come along and gather
Yep,
it.
we have all our material here in a windrow.
Yeah.
And we scythe a lot for our animals, so we bring fodder to our animals. It's also very nice for mowing in an orchard. It's a lot more exacting than a weed whacker. So you can go right around a tree without worrying about nicking the tree.
Yeah.
Because the back of the blade is up against the tree and you're cutting away this way.
Yes.
And then you go around it the other direction and you bring all that mulch in around the base of the tree.
So nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's quiet.
Yes.
You can
and it
hear the
doesn't
birds.
Smell bad. Oh,
Doesn't
yeah.
spray slug guts up on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the good things.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
lovely.
And it's, you don't have to start it. It's like start, stop. So the scythe and the U-bar are my two favorite, very low-tech tools that we use here on the farm.
What's a U-bar?
Also known as a broad fork. So it's like a big spading fork that you step on and lean back.
Yeah, that's a great tool too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
Always learning stuff. Always have a wonderful time when I'm here.
there's like I said, a lot of different types of blades you can use depending upon what you're trying to cut. So I have a much shorter blade that I use in between rows, like in between raspberry rows, or in a tight little path, or up against a fence line, constricted areas.
Right.
And then this is my more open field blade, and then I have some smaller blades that are just kind of general purpose.
And heavier blades.
Heavier
really
blades. If you're unproven ground, maybe you got some tansy or some blackberry in there, you wouldn't want your finer blade to be cutting that.
Yeah.
Right.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll let you get back to it. You're obviously a busy guy.
Oh yeah, lots of grass to cut. It never stops growing.
Right? That's so true. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time from Raintree Nursery.